Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on SharePoint Hybrid. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to the folks joining from different parts of the globe. My name is Noor Basha, Marketing Director at WinWire Technologies, and I'll be a moderator for today's webinar. So as you can see, today's topic for the session is getting ready for hybrid cloud, leveraging SharePoint on-prem, Office 365, and Azure. In the next 30 minutes, we will learn some of the best hybrid best practices, the hybrid scenarios, and the hybrid strategy, leveraging some of the above-mentioned tools. Also, at the end, we will have a quick high-level insight on SharePoint 2019, which Microsoft released the preview version a few weeks back. So before we start, let me highlight a few housekeeping items. During the webinar, please feel free to post questions, and we will try to answer as many as we can at the end of the session. And we are recording this session, and we'll be sharing the session as well as the PPT next 24 to 48 hours. So with that, let me take this opportunity to introduce you to my colleague and our today's speaker, Mr. Madan, who is the Senior Technical Architect at WinWire Technologies. And Madan brings over close to 14 years of IT industry experience and is a Microsoft certified professional, designing and developing enterprise applications, leveraging tools such as Azure, Office 365, and SharePoint. Over the past few years, he has worked with some of the large customers in developing and designing the large enterprise application and helping them adopt Microsoft Cloud as an organization-wide effective platform. So with that, let me hand it over to Madan to take it from there. Madan, over to you.
Thank you so much, Noor, for setting the stage. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, folks who are joining across the globe. In today's session, we'll be talking more about SharePoint Hybrid, and for some folks, it may be SharePoint Hybrid is probably slightly older topic. Right. So the reason why we want to do the SharePoint Hybrid one more time is traditionally everyone adopted hybrid. Many folks have adopted hybrid in a traditional way, having some SharePoint on-prem component and then SharePoint online. Right. The trend is changing slightly, probably in the last couple of years, leveraging not just SharePoint online, but the entire Office 365 enchilada of products, and also have leveraging Azure to extend SharePoint functionalities, right? So we'll talk about what is a traditional SharePoint hybrid I'm referring to, and then what is a next gen hybrid, and we'll also just do a sneak peek into the SharePoint 29 public preview available. So we'll go over that, and as Noor clearly mentioned, please post your questions on the chat window, so we can try and cover as much as we can in this session. It's only a 30 minutes session. Anything which we are not able to cover, we can always have a follow-up session with relevant folks. With that said, I'll get on to the actual webinar. Traditionally, from a hybrid SharePoint hybrid standpoint, what customers have been adopting in the last 5 years, I would say, probably like 3 to 5 years, a lot of customers have been adopting to SharePoint hybrid model, right? What it means is that you have a SharePoint form, maybe one or more than one SharePoint form running on your on-premises environment, primarily in the primary data center, right? And you leverage cloud. In this case specifically the Office 365 cloud, and more specifically SharePoint Online, and to an extent probably OneDrive for Business for some of the documents, right? So that has been a case for many of the customers we work with in the last 5 years, I would say. And first of all, why do you even need to move to hybrid, right? Over a period of last probably close to a decade, I would say, every customer has been adopting cloud strategy. And there is no question of, okay, whether you want to move to cloud or not, but the question is, when do you want to move it, right? It's not a overnight job, so you just switch everything to cloud. That is not going to happen. And there is a slow transition you will have to plan for to move all of your workloads into cloud, right? And the starting point from a SharePoint perspective is to start with hybrid, uh, start taking investment. And in terms of investment, for example, Office 365, based on the recent studies, 95% of Fortune 500 companies are already having Office 365. So it's not a question of do you need to buy licenses for Office 365 and all of it. Majority of the customers are either on E3 licenses or E5 licenses of Microsoft Office 365. So SharePoint comes in as a bundle, comes in with a bundle, right? So you already have the investment done on the SharePoint Online. All you have to do is just start leveraging it, right? How do you start leveraging it? By starting with a small hybrid. And you could also save on storage costs. How many of you have a pain of having a network share with terabytes of data, right? And all the users dump all the data, terabytes of data, and you have a huge maintenance issue of managing those network shares. A lot of times, it doesn't work. It's not able to connect. It is slow. All that issues, right? You can leverage OneDrive, which comes with Office 365, and it provides terabytes of data for each user, right? So you can save a lot of storage costs internally on-prem and move all the content to OneDrive, right? That's another scenario. And when we talk about compliance, probably 7-8 years back and maybe 5 years back, people always had questions and little conservative on, okay, is cloud safe enough for me to move my data, right? The confidential data I have and all of it. So Microsoft has been listening to all of them and started working on all of these compliance standards, starting from HIPAA, European Union standards, and the most recent GDPR compliance regulations. Right? All of them, Microsoft Office 365 is already compliant, right? So there is there's no additional security that one needs to plan for when you start thinking about moving to SharePoint Online or Office 365 overall. High availability and scalability. How many times you have your monthly or weekly maintenance of on-prem servers, and you had to send out an email saying, okay, the servers will be unavailable for let's say 4 hours, 3 hours, and all of it. None of that issues will occur with SharePoint Online or Office 365 because Microsoft is already guaranteeing 99.99% availability, which means hardly probably an hour or so you will have downtime across the year, not just per month. I'm talking about across the year. Scalability, just because entire Office 365 being a SaaS platform, Microsoft manages the scalability part of it. You don't have to worry about, okay, if my load goes high, do I need to change my plan? Do I need to pay more? So automatically Office 365 scales up or scales down depending on the load dynamically. So you as an IT administrator or from an IT team don't need to worry about scaling up or down, right? Everything is managed by Microsoft. And this is an important topic, new features on Office 365. There's plenty of features every week Microsoft is releasing. Only the question is, will you be able to catch up with all that enhancements happening on a weekly basis? That's the only question. Microsoft keeps releasing more features, and any issues anyone encounters, it keeps getting rectified. Security, if at all you think of an additional security, you can always leverage Azure AD's multi-factor authentication as well, just provide additional security. Traditional scenario, right? So this is something that very much familiar. You have a on-premises environment, maybe one or more than one forms, and you have Office 365 SharePoint Online, and that makes it hybrid, right? So that has been known to many of the organizations. They have already adopted this scenario. From a use cases standpoint, where does this traditional hybrid helps? The first thing people have gone for hybrid is search. Okay, let me have some of my portals running on online, but at the same time, I don't want to go to SharePoint Online separate, search for some content, and then go to my SharePoint on-prem environment and start searching some content, right? So I want to collate all of the results. So hybrid search is the answer for that, and this has been an very highly used scenario in terms of hybrid implementation. The very next scenario I have seen many of our customers adopt to is having a business-to-business extranet portals running on SharePoint Online. I remember setting up extranet from SharePoint on-prem takes hell a lot of time in on-prem environment. In 2010 environment, I used to do that. You will end up extending the web application and all of that additional activity. You'll have to do it. You will have to have a separate authentication mechanism to manage the external users. None of that hassles are going to be there in an online extranet, right? And you do have a control from an IT standpoint whether you want to enable extranet access for a particular site collection or for your entire tenant. So you have switches for both the scenarios. You can turn it off or on. But setting up extranet is probably a minute's job. Setting up extranet and giving access to your partners, your suppliers, or your customers. A lot of my customers are now leveraging this scenario and then working with their customers and collaborating with them more efficiently than how they used to do it with SharePoint on-prem. Right? Hybrid app launcher. I'll not probably get into the details of it. App launcher is the waffle icon, what you see on the Office 365 portal, left-hand side top corner, if you know what I mean. And auditing or taxonomy, all of these are common use case scenarios for a traditional SharePoint hybrid. What do you need to set up this hybrid? Many customers feel that setting up a hybrid meaning I will have to do a lot of activities, and it's not possible, and I don't have enough skill sets to do that. We can certainly help. Many customers have this option of we can help with the SharePoint hybrid. Right? All you need, what is a prerequisite? All you need is obviously a SharePoint on-prem environment. Typically SharePoint 2013 or 2016 helps a lot, and even 2019 to an extent, right? And you will need service accounts to access your Office 365 tenant environment and also your SharePoint on-prem environment as well. Right? For all of this, you need service accounts. In order to make sure that you're authenticating well enough, you need additional service accounts for your Active Directory synchronization and your ADFS configuration, Active Directory Federation Service configuration as well. And in terms of an environment, you need 3 to 4 servers. Everything starting from directory synchronization of your Active Directory Federation Services server, and also your web application proxy, and then the reverse proxy. Right. So these are all the 4 servers we need. And with that, need typically, depending on your security policies and then the InfoSec compliance requirements, typically, it can take anywhere from 1 to 3 weeks. Right, that's the range. 1 week is like, okay, you don't have a lot of security policies. We don't need to do a InfoSec review or anything. Then it takes it slightly on a lower side. But if there are a lot of approvals needed in order to get this environment, then we will be looking probably around 3 weeks or so. Right? It's not a complex setup for us. We have done it umpteen number of times. This is one of the architecture at a high level, and I'll not probably get into the technical details of it, but at a high level, you basically see all the Active Directory servers and then the reverse, proxy, server, which connects to Office 365, and then all the Active Directory servers are responsible for your directory synchronization, right? Then, from a SharePoint 2016, is the environment shown here. SharePoint 2013 is also equally good for setting up the hybrid environment. Let's talk about next gen hybrid, because we have spent good amount of time for the traditional hybrid option. In terms of the next gen hybrid, there are three different portals. One is the SharePoint, Office 365, and then Azure. Right? So how do we leverage all of them? Traditionally, people have been doing a lift and shift. In many cases, it's a lift and shift, and then after doing it, they realize that okay, this platform has been there for more than a decade. I shouldn't have done the lift and shift. I should have spent a little more time and effort to revamp this portal or re-architect wherever required, right? And traditionally, whatever SharePoint on-prem was doing, now there are other productivity tools within Office 365 itself, which you have already probably licensed it, in terms of Flow for implementing simple workflows, or Power Apps for implementing simple forms, and Microsoft Teams for chat-based collaboration. I would recommend everyone to just browse through about Microsoft Teams. If you guys need any more information, you can always reach out to us. We can help you, give an overview session about Microsoft Teams. This has been a future for the chat-based collaboration. And if you just look at only SharePoint Online supports now the modern team sites, which has much more advanced features. New communication sites. There is a hub sites to connect to multiple of these sites, rather than just the classic SharePoint sites. And coming to Azure, a lot of times we realize that when we go with a traditional SharePoint hybrid, people have been complaining, okay, it's great, SharePoint Online works fine, but what we realize is there are one or two use cases always need extensive customization, which is probably slightly hard to implement it using a client-side scripting, which is supported by SharePoint Online. We need those customizations in order for us to completely shut down my SharePoint on-prem environment. So what do I need to do? Right? So Azure, extending SharePoint Online functionality using Azure is an answer for it. You can run custom apps. Let's say you can also use file storage, Azure file storage for low-cost storage to optimize your cost. And all of these apps you developed on Azure can be easily consumed within SharePoint, just like a web part. Just like any other web part you would use, you could simply consume them. Right? We have done integrations, for example, for a lot of customers, we have done integration with their Workday portal, their Altipro HR system, or their ServiceNow, any ticketing management system. All of these integrations, we have done it using Azure app and consume it from the SharePoint, so that when the user logs in, they get to see personalized content relevant for them, rather than showing dump of everything. SharePoint hybrid advanced scenarios, like I talked about. You have Office 365, you have Azure path, all the compute, network, storage, all of it, and your on-prem environment having an Azure Active Directory. Your on-prem environment having an Active Directory and synchronized with your Azure Active Directory. Right? And your SharePoint is connected to your Office 365 or your Azure path or infrastructure as a service, all of these platforms. One additional scenario for anyone who wants to just try out cloud. Excellent example, excellent use case we have just implemented for some of our customers now is thinking about just implementing your SharePoint DR on Azure. your entire SharePoint is running on-prem. You don't have a SharePoint online component, but only your DR environment, instead of putting it in your secondary data center, you think about moving your SharePoint DR to Azure Site Recovery, right? So the entire disaster recovery as well as the business continuity plan, all of them, can be supported well using Azure-based, DR implementation, right? Azure Site Recovery is a, great concept which supports not only for SharePoint, there are other environments as well. You can, help, move the DR environment to Azure, right? So this is something, we have implemented it. Again, not a very complex, process, very well defined, and also switches between your primary to DR data center within minutes with no manual intervention at all, completely automated. Azure, acts as Azure site recovery component, acts as a monitoring environment, keep monitoring your primary data center's SharePoint environment. The moment, it goes down, it automatically switches everything to the DR environment. So you will probably have your RTO and RPO can be excellent. Probably, you will be talking, thinking about your RTO of probably a few minutes and RPO of less than probably, even 10 minutes, right? So you can plan it that way as well. Things to watch out for when you're planning for hybrid. So when you're planning for hybrid, inventory analysis and assessment is very important. So you'll have to know what you have and start mapping your content and figure out whether you want to migrate it to SharePoint Online, or you want to migrate it to Teams, you want to migrate it to probably just OneDrive for business. All of that you will have to plan for. Then do not try to take everything. That would be my recommendation based on implementing this migration projects, as well as implementing hybrid projects for over many years. I would recommend not to just take everything you have, rather make a informed decision. And also think of providing a new skin. People will be bored of seeing the same old SharePoint skin. Think about a new skin for your SharePoint environment. Very important topic. Your URLs will change. All of your existing documents and some user manuals, some policy guides, everything will have a reference of absolute SharePoint URL. All of those URLs will change. We do have an URL redirection module which we have implemented it. That works like a charm to redirect from your existing SharePoint 2010 or 2013 environment to the newer platform. That is something very critical, because if you don't handle that, you're going to be running into issues of, oh, none of my documents will work, none of my links work. I don't think we can move to SharePoint Online now, right? All that issues will come from the business side if you don't handle this particular issue. And you'll have to also prioritize and choose what you want to migrate first as a pilot. That's very important. Again, my recommendation: do not think of a big bang. Always think about phases. Implementing these in a phased manner. That is much better than trying to do a big bang and then figuring out all these issues at once. With that said, I'll probably take a minute or so just to go over what is there in SharePoint 2019. So SharePoint 2019 is launched a few weeks back for public preview. I've looked at it. It has great set of features. Some of them to name some of them. Having a virtual reality experience in a SharePoint space is awesome. Thinking from Microsoft. That's something I have explored it. It's pretty cool. They do have communication sites, the modern team sites. They have something called hub sites to connect related sites. Let's say, for example, you have 10 different sites created for your HR team, and you want to somehow create a navigational hierarchy across those 10 sites. Then hub sites is your answer for it, right? And PDF viewer hybrid is made so easy. in 2019. That is very important. File path limitation, the character limit, as well as your URL limit of 255 characters was a big pain for many of the customers. Now it has been increased to 400 characters, and file name also allows hash symbol as well as percentage symbol. This has been a pain for many users in SharePoint Online and as well as SharePoint earlier versions. Now that has been allowed. When Microsoft adds a lot of features, they also deprecate or remove certain features. Some of them, just to name, access services, Groove and InfoPath. So I know we had nightmares to work with InfoPath in some of the older implementations. 2013 they announced InfoPath will be deprecated. 2015 they said they'll support for some more time. Now it is a clear direction that InfoPath will no longer be supported. Same is the case for SharePoint Designer. There will not be a new SharePoint Designer launched. InfoPath as well as SharePoint Designer will be staying in the 2013 version only. Right? Performance point and sandbox based solutions are also not supported. With that said, I conclude my session. Over to you, Noor.
Yeah, thanks, Madan. Thanks for the informative session. I'm sure people would have found informative. Yes, we have few questions coming in. So let me take this question from John, who asks, how long does it take to set up hybrid with SharePoint on-prem and SharePoint online?
Sure. Typically, it depends on the use cases, you choose. But, for let's say, if you just think of a hybrid search or probably, setting up, the hybrid taxonomy, for example, in those kind of, scenarios, we are looking at, anywhere between 1 to 3 weeks, right? That's a pretty much timeline for SharePoint hybrid.
Thanks, Madan. Okay, and other question that comes in is since Microsoft is releasing several versions of SharePoint in the last few years, so the question is, what version of SharePoint on-prem is supported for hybrid setup?
Okay, excellent question. Because this has been a question for many users. Can I set up hybrid with SharePoint 2007? That also is a question I heard from some of the customers. The ideal versions are obviously 2016 has the highest support for now, and obviously 2019 released with making hybrid more easier, and it's just in public preview mode. 2016, 2013 are the ideal versions for setting up hybrid. 2010 also has the possibility with little bit more efforts rather than 1 to 3 weeks. But 2013 or 2016 are probably the ideal versions for setting up the hybrid.
Perfect. Great. So the other question, this is specifically on the Azure, is since you spoke about Azure being considered as for the Azure site recovery, the question is, what will be the monthly cost of Azure if you set up SharePoint Hybrid with Microsoft Azure?
Sure. Like I said, this also depends on a specific scenario. For example, setting up Azure for just running some apps, right? Some custom functionality, some custom workflow, or some custom forms you have developed, and you're connecting with some other source. If you're just deploying some apps, then you're talking about probably cost of 100 in a month, right? Monthly cost of probably 100 to 200. But if you're talking about Azure for, let's say, DR implementation using Azure Site Recovery, right? So you are talking about probably close to 2K to 3K per month overall, right? Because again, Azure, you have active environment as well as active passive. So depending on the configuration as well as the use case you choose, you're talking about different cost.
Thanks, Madan. Thanks for taking those questions. I know we are almost at the end of the session. Folks, if there are any additional questions, I would certainly request you to send an email to marketing@winwire.com, and we will take those questions offline. You can follow us on the Twitter as well as visit our blog for some of the latest insights on topics like Azure, Office 365, and machine learning as well. So with that, let me take this opportunity to thank you all for joining this session, and I hope you found it informative and useful. Madan, thanks a lot for taking up the session. Really helpful. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, everyone.